This is the Cidoo V75, a VIA-compatible keyboard with a compact 75% layout, a gasket mount, a full aluminium case, RGB and wireless capability, which costs just $139 as a fully assembled keyboard. In this video I'm going to do a stock out of the box typing test, a full strip down, and we'll rebuild with mods or a different configuration for a comparison typing test. I'll also try to figure out just how Cidoo have made this so cheap. Thanks to Cidoo for sending this one over for a review. Buy the Cidoo V75 at the best price possible direct from Cidoo themselves and with a discount using my affiliate link in the description below. First, let's get the Cidoo V75 out the box. Pretty standard unboxing, but without too much single-use plastic, which I like to see. There's also no dust cover, which I also prefer to save on plastic. In the box you get a braided cable, a switch and keycap puller, an Allen key for case disassembly, and the instruction manual. Now let's get straight into it with the stock sound test. So, first impressions, and that's a really clean stock typing test. It sounds quite pleasant for sure, perhaps a little on the quiet side for me, but it doesn't sound thin, more like it could just do with less dampening in the bottom case. Not only does the keyboard and gasket sound and feel good, but the switches and keycaps seem like they're holding up their end as well. The stabilizers are without any hideous rattle, but I definitely feel like a decent lube job will make them sound and feel better. The keycaps are dye sublimated PBT, and on closer inspection I can see they're really nicely made and with a whopping 1.7mm thickness. The modifiers are all caps, which I know some people don't like, and the Control and Alt keycaps are double printed for both Windows and Mac, which I don't really like as they've moved the Windows lettering out of alignment with the function key. The switches are pretty nice too, a box linear with a 47g operating force and a 60g bottom out with a nylon housing and a POM stem. They come pre-lubed but very inconsistently so, although the switches carry it off and you don't notice it so much when typing. For me, they don't need re-lubing. The typing angle is perhaps a little shallow for my taste. Based on my calcs I make it out to be a 6° typing angle compared to say the 8° typing angle of the QK75. In terms of functionality, everything works perfectly. It's a tri-mode keyboard and in Bluetooth mode it has 3 connections available, which work flawlessly in terms of pairing and switching devices. The 2.4 GHz receiver is stored neatly underneath this magnetic badge, and the mode switch and USB-C port is back left. The RGB is good and has all the usual effects and adjustments, but additionally you can individually change the colour and effect of the LED bar in the top right. You can also switch the backlight RGB off by turning the brightness all the way down, leaving the LED bar on, or switch them both off using function backspace. Next we'll take it apart and see what's going on inside. First you pop off the encoder, remove the 6 screws from the bottom and lift off the top case. Now we can tilt up the plate and PCB assembly, unplug the daughter board and battery wires, then lift it out. It wasn't until this point that I decided to strip it right down so I could rebuild completely without foams, so it's off with the keycaps and out with the switches, which allowed me to lift off the plate and remove the plate foam. Next I removed the screw-in stabilizers and took off the IXPE switch sheet, and that's the keyboard disassembled into its component parts. During and after disassembly, everything continues to impress me. To pick out some of the highlights, I noted silicone blocks beside each case screw in the bottom case. This is to get rid of case reverberance, which they do a nice job of. It's good to see something inbuilt for this instead of having to use stickers. The 3000 mAh battery and daughter board is also really nicely housed in the bottom case, with the case being CNC'd really tight to each to prevent unnecessary voids. I love getting polycarbonate plates stock in a keyboard, but I do feel like this one has too many flex cuts. The gaskets are on the plate in form of pour-on strips, thick on the bottom and thinner on the top as usual. The PCB is nice quality, 1.6mm thick and without flex cuts, which I could tell from the typing sound. Flex cuts in the PCB as well as the plate will have really thinned out the sound. The stabilizers, like the switches, are inconsistently factory lubed, so the fact that they weren't rattly is a good sign these will be nice with the proper lube job. Finally, we've got all all the dampening you could ever want stock in this keyboard, a bottom case foam pad, an adhesive pour-on pad for use directly under the PCB, an IXPE switch sheet, and a pour-on plate foam pad. Even though for my taste this one doesn't need all that dampening, it's good that it comes with it. Now I'm going to rebuild, and there are no mods I want to do on this one really. I'm more interested to see how it sounds with all the foams out. All I'll do is my go-to lube job on the stabilisers, which is Krytox 205 Grade 0 on the stems and in the housings, and dielectric grease on the wires, after which I reinstalled them in the PCB without the IXPE switch sheet. All I did from there was rebuilt with no foams, so switches back in to secure the plate and PCB back together, plug the wires back into the PCB, land the plate and PCB in the case, reassemble the case, and on with the keycaps and encoder. So let's see how it sounds with no foams. Well, that typing test is just the icing on the cake for me. I prefer the sound way more without foams, but whichever you prefer, it's always great when a keyboard sounds good without any foam whatsoever. You can keep the foam in to suit your taste, but they aren't covering anything up, and the keyboard really holds its own in terms of the sound without them. From a typing and sound feel and a functionality perspective, I really couldn't be more impressed with this one. The keyboard is so close to perfect for its price, but there is one thing I don't like about it, and that's the aesthetic. I like the form factor. It's definitely nice to see an off-the-shelf aluminium keyboard with a more interesting side profile like this one. The badge, the encoder, and the RGB are all pretty cool. I'm just not a fan of this vintage or retro beige colorway lots of manufacturers seem to go for. Don't get me wrong, I like a bit of retro, and I can see they've leaned into it with the grooves CNC'd into the bottom case to look like Amiga 500 vents. It just feels like this colorway is too limiting for a keyboard that has so much potential. Cidoo should really take a leaf out of Keychron's book on case colors, stick to black, white and silver cases. That way we can customize to our own taste with any color keycap set we want. Beige is just too limiting for me on that front. Other than that, what an excellent keyboard. Pretty much perfect if you're looking for off-the-shelf aluminium at this price point, and if you like the colorway. And that's it. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.